People like us are supposed to know when we don't belong, I told myself that night. The problem was, Adrian Cole heard me. My name is Claire Bennett, and at 29, I had become very good at disappearing in crowded rooms. That was harder than it sounds when you were 5'6", plus size, wearing a black evening dress beneath a staff badge that said event manager in silver letters. The ballroom of the Halston Grand glittered around me like somebody had trapped Manhattan inside crystal. Chandeliers burned overhead. A string quartet played near the marble staircase. Champagne glasses chimed beneath conversations about investments, vacation homes, and numbers with more zeros than my annual salary. Outside, October rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning Chicago into a watercolor of headlights and wet pavement. Inside, 300 guests expected perfection. My job was making sure they got it. "Excuse me." A woman in diamonds lifted an empty champagne flute toward me without looking at my badge. "Could you bring me another?" I smiled automatically. Of course. I could have corrected her. I was managing the gala, not serving it. But correcting wealthy guests was usually more exhausting than carrying a glass 20 feet. I found a server, quietly handled the request, then returned to the crisis waiting in my headset. The keynote speaker's microphone had failed. Table 14 was missing 2 place settings. Someone had somehow delivered 12 vegetarian dinners to a table of steakhouse donors. Normal Saturday night. "Claire, we've got a problem," my assistant whispered. "How bad?" "The donor presentation won't load." I checked my watch. For minutes until the ballroom lights dimmed. Backup laptop. Not recognizing the file. Hard copy. Wrong version. I closed my eyes for exactly 1 second. Okay. Nobody panics until I do. 3 minutes later, I had the presentation running from my personal laptop, the microphone replaced, the seating corrected, and the vegetarian dinners moving toward the right table. The lights dimmed precisely on schedule. Applause filled the ballroom. Nobody knew anything had gone wrong. That was success in my profession. If people noticed you, you had probably failed. I stepped behind a column and finally exhaled. That was when I saw him. Adrian Cole stood across the ballroom in a charcoal suit, one hand resting loosely beside an untouched glass of bourbon. I knew the name before I knew the man. Everyone in Chicago seemed to. Cole Holdings owned buildings, restaurants, logistics companies, and enough downtown property that people joked Adrian could walk from the river to the lake without stepping onto land he didn't influence. The jokes always got quieter when someone mentioned him in person. He was 35, maybe 6'3", dark-haired, pale-skinned, with gray-blue eyes that looked strangely still beneath the chandelier light. 4 men stood near him. None interrupted him. None needed to. Adrian wasn't talking. He was looking at me. I glanced behind myself. Nobody. I looked back. Still me. My stomach tightened. I touched my dress instinctively, smoothing fabric over my waist. Maybe something was wrong. Maybe I had spilled something. Maybe he was wondering why a woman built like me had chosen a fitted dress instead of the safe black uniforms I usually hid inside. There it was. That familiar little voice. Fast. Cruel. Efficient. I looked away before he could. 20 minutes later, another problem sent me across the ballroom, and I passed close enough to hear Adrian's assistant speaking quietly beside him. "The revised numbers are upstairs." Adrian didn't answer. "Mr. Cole." A pause. Then his voice came low and calm. "Who is she?" I kept walking, pretending I hadn't heard. His assistant followed Adrian's gaze. "Claire Bennett, event manager." My pulse stumbled. Then the assistant added, almost amused, "And you've been watching her for 23 minutes. This time I stopped. I stopped for half a second, which was half a second too long. Adrian Cole knew I had heard them. I could feel it without turning around. That strange pressure of being noticed by someone who seemed accustomed to noticing everything. So I did what any sensible event manager would do when one of the most intimidating men in Chicago had apparently spent 23 minutes watching her. I kept walking. Fast. Claire, my assistant, Megan, intercepted me near the ballroom doors. "The Cole Group wants you handling their table personally." "Of course they do. Is that bad?" "I have no idea." I straightened my badge and crossed the room. Adrian's table sat near the tall windows overlooking rain-soaked Michigan Avenue. 5 men occupied it now, all dressed like they had never checked a price tag in their lives. Conversation faded when I approached. "Mr. Cole, I understand your group needs something." Adrian looked up. Those gray-blue eyes were even more unsettling from 6 feet away. Coffee. I waited. That is the emergency? One of the men almost smiled. Adrian did not. Apparently. Cream? Sugar? Black? Anything else? His gaze held mine. Not yet. I should have nodded and left. Instead, exhaustion loosened my judgment. For future reference, Mr. Cole, you can ask any server for coffee. The woman wearing the event manager badge is usually managing the event. Silence. My heartbeat climbed into my throat. Then Adrian glanced at my badge as though seeing it for the first time. Fair point. That surprised me more than anger would have. Powerful men rarely apologized, even indirectly. I brought his coffee myself anyway. Not because he had ordered me to. Because I wanted him to understand the difference. For the next hour, the gala moved smoothly. Adrian never called me over again. But whenever I crossed the ballroom, I caught him watching. Not my dress. Not my body. Me. It should have made me uncomfortable. Instead, it made me curious, which was probably worse. Near 11 o'clock, I headed toward the private conference corridor to check a catering invoice. The music softened behind me as the ballroom doors closed. The hallway was empty except for the hum of recessed lights and rain tapping against narrow windows. Halfway to the office, I heard voices inside conference room 3. Monday night, a man said. Cole cannot know until everything is transferred. I slowed. Another voice answered, quieter. And if he finds out? He will not. My instincts told me to keep moving. My job involved seating charts and catering contracts, not whispered conversations behind closed doors. Then someone inside said Adrian's name again. I took one step backward. My heel caught the edge of a decorative table. A silver tray rattled. The voices stopped. Completely. My breath caught. The conference room door opened. A man in a navy suit stepped into the hallway and looked directly at me. Can I help you? His smile was polite. His eyes were not. Sorry. Wrong room. I turned toward the ballroom. He followed. Not quickly. That somehow made it worse. I reached the corner and nearly walked straight into someone. Adrian. He stood perfectly still, one hand in his pocket, his expression unreadable. His eyes moved from my face to the man behind me. Something changed in the hallway. No raised voices. No threats. Just silence. The man in the navy suit stopped. Adrian looked back at me. Claire. For the first time that evening, hearing my name from him felt less like a warning than a door opening. Come with me. For one irrational second, I considered pretending Adrian had been speaking to someone else. Then his eyes settled on mine, calm and unmistakable. Come with me, he repeated. I glanced over my shoulder. The man in the navy suit was still there, standing perhaps 15 feet away with that same careful smile. I am working, I said. I noticed. Adrian's gaze shifted past me. Walk. I should have been offended by the command. I was offended by the command. But something in the hallway had changed, and every instinct I had was telling me that arguing could wait. I moved beside him toward the ballroom. Adrian slowed before we reached the doors. Give me your hand. I stared at him. Absolutely not. His expression barely changed. Claire, you have known me for approximately 2 hours. You do not get to issue hand-related instructions. For the first time, something almost warm touched his eyes. Then it disappeared. The man behind you wants to know how much you heard. If you walk into that ballroom frightened and alone, he gets an answer. My mouth went dry, and holding your hand fixes that. It changes the question. Music drifted through the doors ahead of us. Beyond them waited 300 guests, dozens of staff members, and enough witnesses to make me feel safer than I had 30 seconds earlier. I looked at Adrian's hand. He did not reach for me. He simply waited. That mattered, more than I wanted it to. I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed gently around mine. Controlled. Nothing theatrical. Then we entered the ballroom. The effect was immediate. Conversations continued, but faces turned. Adrian Cole walking into a room attracted attention. Adrian Cole walking into a room with me apparently rewrote gravity. I felt every curious glance land on my dress, my body, my face. My old reflex surfaced immediately. Make yourself smaller. Let go. Step behind him. Instead, Adrian adjusted his pace to mine. Not ahead. Beside me. We crossed the ballroom slowly. When I risked a glance toward the doors, the man in the navy suit had stopped following. Who is he? I whispered. Someone who should not have been using that conference room. That tells me nothing. For tonight, it tells you enough. I pulled my hand free the moment we reached Adrian's table. Do not do that again. His brows lifted. Keep you safe. Make decisions for me. The men around his table became extremely interested in their coffee. Adrian studied me for several quiet seconds. You would rather I explained everything in the hallway? I would rather you asked before turning me into whatever that performance was. It was not a performance. Then what was it? His eyes moved toward the ballroom entrance. A message. I folded my arms. I am not anybody's message. Silence. I expected irritation. Instead, Adrian nodded once. Fair. That word again. It unsettled me more than arrogance would have. I looked toward my staff. Megan was watching from across the room with an expression that promised several hours of questions. I need to finish my shift. Then finish it. And after that, Adrian glanced at his watch. After that, you are going home. I almost laughed. How generous. Claire. His voice lowered. When you leave, pay attention to who leaves after you. The humor vanished from my face. You think someone will follow me? I think you heard something tonight that was meant to stay private. And you are involved. His silence answered before his words did. Not in the way you think. I stepped backward. That is exactly what a suspicious person would say. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Probably. I turned away, determined to finish the gala and forget every strange second of this conversation. 2 hours later, at 12:43 in the morning, I walked through the employee entrance into the cold Chicago rain. My car sat beneath a flickering parking lot light 50 yards away. I took 3 steps before remembering Adrian's warning. Pay attention to who leaves after you. Behind me, a door opened. The door clicked shut behind me, and every muscle in my body tightened. I turned beneath the yellow parking lot light, rain tapping against my hair and shoulders. Megan hurried outside, carrying an oversized umbrella and her purse. Claire, wait. Air rushed out of my lungs. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Sorry. I thought we could walk out together. Best idea you have had all night. We crossed the wet pavement toward our cars. Mine was parked near the far edge of the lot, a 6-year-old blue Honda that suddenly looked very small beneath the dark Chicago skyline. Megan kept glancing at me. Are we going to discuss Adrian Cole? No, he held your hand. Still no. Half the ballroom saw it. Then half the ballroom needs better hobbies. Megan laughed, but I did not. Adrian's warning kept repeating in my head. Pay attention to who leaves after you. I reached my car and unlocked it. That was when headlights appeared at the parking lot entrance. A dark sedan rolled slowly past the gate. Too slowly. Megan stopped talking. The car continued toward us, then parked across the lot without anyone getting out. My stomach dropped. Get in your car, I whispered. Claire. Now, Megan. Before either of us moved, another vehicle entered. Black sport utility vehicle. Familiar. It stopped 20 feet away, and Adrian stepped out beneath the rain. No umbrella. No hurry. Somehow that made his arrival feel more deliberate. You followed me? I asked when he reached us. No, that answer would work better if you were not standing in my employee parking lot at 1 o'clock in the morning. Adrian looked toward the sedan. A moment later, it pulled away. He watched until its taillights disappeared. Now I followed you. Megan looked between us. I'm going to pretend this is normal. Please do not, I said. Adrian turned to her. Drive home. Someone will make sure you arrive safely. Megan opened her mouth. I cut in. Nobody is making sure anybody does anything. Adrian's attention returned to me. Claire. No. You warned me. Fine. Thank you. But you do not get to organize my life because something strange happened at work. Rain ran cold along my neck. I barely noticed. Tomorrow morning there will probably be a car outside your apartment, he said. I stared at him. There absolutely will not. 2 people. No, they will stay outside. Still no. You will barely notice them. I laughed once, without humor. That sentence might be the most ridiculous thing anyone has ever said to me. His jaw tightened. You could be at risk. And being afraid does not mean I stop getting choices. Silence settled between us. Megan wisely moved several steps away. Adrian looked like a man encountering a language nobody had ever required him to learn. I can keep you safe, he said finally. That is not the same as controlling me. His eyes held mine. Sometimes the difference is smaller than you think. Then learn the difference. The words came out before caution could stop them. Adrian went completely still. For 1 second, I wondered if I had pushed too far. Then he reached into his coat, removed a plain white business card, and held it toward me. A phone number. Nothing else. No car, he said. No people outside your apartment. No interference unless you ask. I took the card. Thank you. But if anything feels wrong, you call. I can agree to that. He nodded once and stepped back. No argument. No command. He simply let me leave. 40 minutes later, I pulled onto my street and almost convinced myself the entire night had been an overreaction. Then I saw the dark sedan parked across from my apartment building. The sedan sat beneath a broken streetlight across from my building, dark windows reflecting the rain. I drove past my apartment without slowing down. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Maybe it was nothing. Chicago had millions of cars, and apparently half of them were dark sedans. I circled the block once. When I returned, it was still there. The white card rested in my cup holder. I stared at the number for 3 seconds before calling. Adrian answered on the first ring. Claire. No hello. No question about who was calling. There is a car outside my building. His voice changed immediately. Where are you? In my car. Keep driving. Adrian. You called me. That means you want my help. Annoyingly, he had a point. Fine. What do I do? There is a 24-hour diner on Clark Street, about 4 blocks north of you. Public, bright, cameras everywhere. Go there. 10 minutes later, I sat in a vinyl booth beneath fluorescent lights with untouched coffee cooling between my hands. Adrian arrived 7 minutes after that. I knew because I checked the clock. He slid into the booth opposite me, still wearing the charcoal suit from the gala, though his tie was gone. The sedan. I asked. Gone. That does not answer my question. I know. I leaned back. You are incredibly frustrating. I have been told. Frequently. Recently. I almost smiled. That irritated me too. Adrian ordered coffee. Nothing else. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The diner smelled like pancakes, burnt toast, and the kind of coffee that had been sitting on a warmer since midnight. It was strangely comforting. Ordinary. Safe. You expected me to call, I said. I hoped you would if you needed help. That distinction landed somewhere I was not prepared for. I looked down at myself. My black dress suddenly felt ridiculous beneath diner lights. I should have changed. Adrian frowned. Why? Because normal people do not sit in diners at 2 in the morning dressed for a gala. You look fine. I gave a small laugh. That is diplomatic. It was not diplomacy. I reached automatically for the oldest shield I owned. Trust me, this dress was ambitious enough the first time. His expression sharpened. What does that mean? Nothing. It did not sound like nothing. I stirred coffee I had no intention of drinking. I am a plus-size woman wearing a fitted dress in a room full of people who probably consider bread a personality flaw. I noticed. Adrian was silent. I regretted saying it immediately. Forget it. Why do you do that? Do what? Say something cruel about yourself, then smile so nobody else has to feel uncomfortable. My spoon stopped moving. You have known me for 1 evening, and I have watched you apologize for taking up space at least 4 times. Heat climbed into my face. I do not apologize for taking up space. You moved behind a column when people looked at you. You pulled at your dress when I looked at you. You made yourself the joke before anyone else could. Each sentence landed quietly. No accusation. Somehow that made them harder to dismiss. You watch people too closely. It keeps me alive. That sounds exhausting. Something flickered behind his eyes. It is. For the first time, Adrian Cole did not look ruthless or untouchable. He looked tired. Human. I wrapped both hands around my coffee. So what happens now? Tonight, you stay somewhere else. I immediately stiffened. He raised one hand. Your choice. Hotel. Friend. Family. I will not decide for you. I studied him. He remembered. Megan has a guest room. Then Megan. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I find out who was watching your building. Without rearranging my life. Without rearranging your life. I nodded slowly. Adrian reached for his coffee. Claire. What? His gaze held mine across the chipped diner table. The dress was never the problem. And for once, I could not think of a joke fast enough to hide behind. For 3 days, Adrian kept his promise. No mysterious cars outside Megan's apartment. No strangers appearing behind me at work. No decisions made on my behalf. He called once each morning, asked whether I was all right, then accepted my answer without turning it into an interrogation. That should have made him easier to forget. It did the opposite. By Wednesday evening, the hotel was hosting a private charity dinner, and I had almost convinced myself my life was normal again. Then I saw Ethan Mercer standing beneath the ballroom chandelier. My stomach tightened before my mind caught up. Ethan had been my boyfriend for almost 2 years. He was handsome in the polished, effortless way that photographed well, with sandy hair, expensive glasses, and a smile people trusted before they knew him. We had been apart for 11 months. Apparently my nervous system had not received the memo. Claire. He smiled as though we had parted over coffee instead of him spending 2 years teaching me to question every mirror I passed. You look good. Hello, Ethan. His eyes traveled over my black dress. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing obvious. Ethan had always been too careful for obvious cruelty. Still wearing black? He asked lightly. You always said it was slimming. There it was. Small enough to deny. Sharp enough to remember. I smiled automatically. Some habits survive bad relationships. His expression tightened. Before he could answer, another voice came from beside me. Claire. Adrian. I had not known he was attending. He stood a few feet away in a dark navy suit, gray-blue eyes moving from my face to Ethan's. Mr. Cole, Ethan said quickly. His posture changed almost instantly. Ethan Mercer. Mercer Development. Adrian acknowledged him with a nod. Nothing more. We were just catching up, Ethan continued. Claire has always been sensitive about these things. Adrian's gaze returned to me. He had heard it. Worse, he understood it. What things? He asked. Ethan laughed softly. You know? Clothes. Wait. Attention. Claire tends to overthink. I felt 26 again, standing inside a department store fitting room while Ethan explained which dresses a woman built like me should avoid. I hated that memory. I hated even more that some part of me still believed him. Ethan, I said, the dinner starts in 10 minutes. Your table is through those doors. He looked surprised, then embarrassed. Of course. Good seeing you, Claire. When he left, Adrian remained silent. Do not, I warned. I have not said anything. Your face is saying plenty. My face is usually more disciplined. Despite myself, I laughed. It vanished quickly. He was not always like that. People rarely are at first. He never shouted. Never called me ugly. Nothing dramatic. I stared toward the ballroom doors. He just corrected me. Little things. What I ordered. What I wore. Which pictures I should delete. He made everything sound helpful. Adrian's jaw tightened. I could make sure he never attends another event here. I turned immediately. No, Claire. No. You do not erase every person who hurt me. Why not? Because then I never learned that I survived them without you. Silence. Adrian looked at me for a long moment, and something in his expression changed. Not anger. Respect. All right, he said. All right. You said no. 2 simple words. Somehow they meant more coming from him. I looked down, smoothing my dress without thinking. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. His voice softened. He still gets to speak when he is not in the room, does he not? My hand froze against the fabric. I looked up. Adrian was not watching my dress. He was watching me, and suddenly I understood what frightened me most about him. It was not his power. It was how easily he could hear the voices I had spent years pretending were my own. By the time the charity dinner ended, Chicago had gone quiet beneath a steady curtain of rain. I should have gone home. Instead, I found myself standing in Adrian's kitchen at 2:17 in the morning, holding a mug of tea I had barely touched. His apartment occupied the top floor of a building overlooking the river, but the kitchen surprised me. Warm lights, dark wood, a bowl of apples on the counter. No staff hovering nearby. No audience. Just Adrian leaning against the opposite counter while rain traced silver lines down the windows behind him. I had come because he finally had news about the sedan. The people watching me were connected to the men from the conference room, but Adrian believed they had backed away once they realized I knew nothing useful. I should have felt relieved. Instead, the evening with Ethan still sat heavily inside me. You are quiet, Adrian said. I am tired. That is not the same thing. You really do make conversation difficult. Only dishonest conversation. I looked down at the dress I was wearing. Not the black one from the gala. This one was deep green, fitted at the waist, something I had bought 6 months earlier and left hanging in my closet because every time I tried it on, I heard Ethan explaining what shapes I should avoid. Tonight, I had worn it anyway. Adrian had noticed the moment he saw me. He had said nothing. Somehow that made me more aware of his attention, not less. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked. Like what? You know what? I do not. I laughed nervously and pulled at the fabric near my waist. His eyes dropped to my hand. There, he said quietly. You did it again. Did what? Tried to disappear. My fingers stopped. I am standing in the middle of your kitchen. I am doing a terrible job. You know what I mean. I looked toward the windows. Maybe I am just realistic. About what? I should have stopped. Instead, the words came out wearing that familiar smile I used whenever I wanted pain to sound harmless. You would never want a woman my size. Adrian went completely still. The refrigerator hummed softly behind me. Rain whispered against the glass. Then he set his mug down. Try saying that again. My heart stumbled. He stepped closer, slowly enough that I could have moved away. I did not. What? Say it again. His voice was calm, not threatening. Somehow that made the moment feel heavier. I swallowed. I said you would never want someone like me. No, he stopped several feet away. That is not what you said. Heat climbed into my face. Adrian. Whose voice was that? The question hit harder than any compliment could have. I stared at him. Mine. Was it? I opened my mouth, then closed it. Ethan's voice surfaced in my memory. Helpful. Reasonable. Constant. Before him, there had been classmates, strangers, advertisements, dressing rooms, photographs I had deleted before anyone else could see them. Years of small judgments stitched together until I had mistaken them for truth. Adrian did not tell me I was beautiful. He did not rescue me from myself. He simply waited while I finally heard the sentence the way he had heard it. I do not know, I whispered. His expression softened. Then stop repeating it until you do. My eyes burned unexpectedly. I laughed because crying felt too vulnerable. That might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me without actually saying something nice. I am not particularly good at nice. I noticed. This time he smiled. Small. Real. I looked down at my green dress. My hand started toward the fabric again, then stopped. I let it fall to my side. Adrian noticed that too. Of course he did. And for the first time in years, I stood exactly where I was without apologizing for the space I occupied. For the next 2 weeks, Adrian did something I had not expected from a man who could make entire rooms rearrange themselves around him. He waited. The sedan never returned. The strange call stopped. The men from the conference room disappeared from the hotel schedule, and Adrian told me only what I asked to know. Somewhere between morning coffee calls and late dinners after my shifts, being around him stopped feeling like standing near a storm. I even started wearing color again. Green. Burgundy. Once, bright blue. Megan nearly dropped her coffee the first morning she saw me. Then, on a Monday afternoon, everything changed. Our general manager, Robert Hayes, asked me into his office and closed the door. He looked happier than a man discussing quarterly budgets had any right to look. We have good news, he said. The Halston Grand has a new majority investor. My stomach tightened before I knew why. Who? Robert smiled. Cole Holdings. The room went silent in my head. When the agreement was finalized Friday. Adrian had taken me to dinner Friday night. He had sat across from me for 2 hours and never said a word. Robert kept talking about renovations, job security, expansion, opportunities. I heard almost none of it. Was my position part of the agreement? I asked. He hesitated. That was enough. Mr. Cole specifically requested continuity in event management. I stood. 20 minutes later, I walked into the lobby of Cole Holdings without an appointment. Adrian's assistant took one look at my face and did not try to stop me. Adrian was standing beside his office windows when I entered. Claire, you bought my hotel. He was silent for one beat. I invested in it. Do not improve the vocabulary. His expression hardened slightly. The property was in financial trouble. And you forgot to mention that. I could not discuss an active acquisition. You could have told me when it was finished. He looked away, which told me everything. You protected my job. Yes. Without asking me. I protected hundreds of jobs. And specifically protected mine. Silence. I felt something inside me sink. You still do not understand. Then explain it. I spent years with a man who made decisions for me because he believed he knew what was best. You are different from Ethan in almost every way, Adrian. But right now you are asking me to accept the same sentence because your intentions were better. His face changed. I never wanted you to feel owned. Then stop treating my life like something you can purchase solutions for. The words hung between us. He could have defended himself. He could have reminded me that he had saved jobs, secured the hotel, protected my career. Instead, Adrian lowered his eyes. You are right. That stopped me. I thought protection meant removing the problem, he continued. I did not understand that sometimes removing the problem also removes the choice. My anger did not disappear. Neither did the hurt. I need space. His jaw tightened. For a moment, I saw the man the entire city feared, the man accustomed to getting what he wanted. Then he walked to his office door and opened it for me. How much? He asked. What? How much space? My throat tightened. I do not know. Adrian nodded. Then you decide. I walked toward the door, expecting him to call my name. He did not. I reached the hallway and looked back. He stood exactly where I had left him, one hand resting on the open door. For the first time since I met Adrian Cole, his power was not in what he could make happen. It was in what he chose not to stop. 3 months passed before I saw Adrian Cole again. Not because he disappeared. Men like Adrian did not disappear. His name remained on financial pages, charity programs, and the brass directory inside the Halston Grand. But he kept the one promise I had never actually asked him to make. He left the distance between us untouched. No calls. No gifts. No convenient meetings arranged by assistants. He let silence belong to me. In January, the hotel hosted its annual winter benefit, and for the first time in my career, I was not running it from behind the curtain. Robert had promoted me to director of events after an independent review of my department. I had asked 3 separate people whether Adrian influenced the decision. He had not. That mattered. So did the dress hanging in my apartment that evening. Deep red. Fitted. Bright enough to make hiding impossible. 6 months earlier, I would have replaced it with black. Instead, I looked at myself in the mirror and waited for the familiar voices. Ethan. Strangers. Old photographs. My own practiced cruelty. They were still there. Just quieter. Confidence, I had learned, was not waking up one morning without insecurity. It was hearing insecurity speak and deciding it did not get the final vote. The ballroom glittered when I arrived. Crystal lights spilled across white tablecloths. Snow drifted beyond the windows over downtown Chicago. People turned toward me. I noticed. Then I kept walking. Megan found me near the staircase and grinned. Do not look now. Whenever someone says that, I immediately look. I followed her gaze. Adrian stood across the ballroom. Dark suit. Silver tie. Same impossible stillness. For a moment, everything around me seemed to soften. He saw me. His expression changed, but he did not move. That was when I understood. The first night we met, Adrian had crossed rooms without asking permission. He had solved problems before anyone invited him to. Tonight, he simply waited. So I walked to him. Every step felt like reclaiming something I had once surrendered without realizing it. When I stopped in front of him, his eyes held mine. Claire. Adrian. His gaze briefly touched my red dress before returning to my face. You look happy. I smiled. I am getting there. Good. Silence settled between us, but it no longer felt dangerous. I heard about the promotion, he said. I also heard you had nothing to do with it. I made certain I had nothing to do with it. Thank you. That should never have required gratitude. There it was. The difference. Not perfection. Learning. You changed, I said. Adrian looked toward the windows. Someone told me I needed to learn the difference between protection and control. She sounds exhausting. She is. I laughed. So did he. Then the orchestra began a slower song, and couples moved toward the dance floor. Adrian looked at them, then at me. He did not ask. Maybe he was still afraid that asking itself would feel like pressure. So I extended my hand. His eyes dropped to it. Are you sure? He asked. I smiled. Ask me again. Something warm moved across his face. Claire Bennett, would you like to dance with me? Yes. He placed his hand in mine. That simple gesture carried me back to the hotel corridor months earlier, when he had offered his hand because he believed safety meant entering his world on his terms. Now he waited to enter mine. We walked toward the dance floor together. Not protector and protected. Not powerful man and invisible woman. 2 people who had learned that love without choice was only another kind of cage. Adrian could make executives lower their voices and entire rooms notice when he entered. But he never ruled me. Maybe that was why, in the end, I became the one person beside whom he never needed to rule anything at all.